Hello and welcome to the first edition of the Rugby League Hub Podcast. It's a weekly podcast where we discuss the news from the rugby league world. Joining me in the studio this week is Ross Williams. How are you doing, Ross?
Yeah, Andrew, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. We'll kick it off this week with the news that Australia and New Zealand will be playing before the final of the World Cup. And does that give someone else the opportunity to actually go on and win the World Cup, do you think, Ross?
Well, I mean, they've got to get through the quarters first. Let's not fully dismiss Samoa and Fiji yet, but I think it definitely does. I don't think it's so much. I mean, you'd expect Australia to beat New Zealand if they should meet in the semis. I think Australia will reach the final. I think more to the point, it's how much damage they're going to take into that final. They've got Fiji this week. I mean, you'd expect Australia to beat them on skill, ability wise, but that's a big pack. It's a really pack, and the Fijians, they're going to come with some fire, and I reckon if they can cause some damage to Australia's pack, they're going to be carrying some knocks going to that semi. Then they've got the Kiwis to dismiss. It's going to be tough for them. So if they do get to the final, facing another big set in England and Tonga, there's going to be a lot of damage to the Australian team. So I definitely think there's a chance for someone else to take it this year.
Yeah, as you said, the Pacific sides have shown this year that they can match the better teams. Specifically Tonga, who came out the other day with an astonishing win, really, against New Zealand. Much was made before the tournament of their promise, and they delivered that the other day. What did you make of the match?
It was unbelievable, wasn't it? I mean, it's the first time ever in World Cup history that a Tier 1 team has been beaten by a Tier 2. And it's just... I think the thing that's got me about Tonga is everyone kind of assumed they were going to be a force or some kind of force in this World Cup, but obviously when the teams came out, it was more about the actual physicality and the power that they seem to have in the pack, and even on the outside backs like Mahai Fanua and players like that. But I mean, you watch the tries from Saturday, and it's free flowing rugby. You know what I mean? They're not just battering them up the middle. It's going from side to side, and they just look really impressive. The halfbacks, which a lot of people mentioned, could be their weak link. They've not been a weak link at all. They've just used the platform with the big forwards, and like players like Murdoch Masila was absolutely outstanding. He looked good for Salford this year, obviously, but he looks a completely different player in that Tongan shirt. Warrington fans will be really happy about that.
Yeah, as you said, it's not just the outside backs anymore. You think of Fiji, they've got Jared Hayne playing there. Tonga have got Tui Lola here from Wests, and they're starting to get that mix of skill and sheer strength right now, and looking a real danger. And it set up a nice semi-final. If you can look past England versus Papua New Guinea, obviously you can't get too ahead of ourselves as England fans, but what do you make of an England versus Tonga matchup? Do you think that's going to be much more even now, or do you think England will have a big test against them?
Oh, I think it's definitely a big test. It's going to be a really tough one. I mean, it's the only World Cup in history where we've got the potential of getting to the final, well, without playing Australia, New Zealand. Usually we'd be jumping for joy at the prospect of that. This year, after watching that on Saturday, is it really an easier game than New Zealand? I'd say it's an easier game than Australia. I think everyone can assume that, but they really matched them and then beat them in the second half. I really think that Tongan side, they could do it, you know. They really could do it. It's going to be tough for England. And like I say, you can't dismiss Papua New Guinea either. I mean, that's going to be another tough game at the weekend on Sunday. It's a shame it's at 5 a.m. really. But
Yeah, the World Cup's thrown up a few surprises this year, you know. Kiwis haven't looked as strong as they have in the past, and England have kind of followed suit with that. They struggled a bit in the second half against Australia, and then carried that on through to Lebanon in the second half. It was on try apiece, and a drop goal won the second half for England. And what do you make of England's first two performances against Lebanon and then against France?
It's just, I think when he gets the mix right, it does work. I mean, after the first half against France proved that, I think. We'll come on to a selection for the quarterfinals later on, I'm sure. But when Bennett gets it right, it is right. It looks good, and then he starts mixing it up a little bit, and it just doesn't look as fluid. It really doesn't, and it doesn't make sense. I mean, you watch Super League all year long. I mean, we watch Super League all year long. Whether Bennett does, I'm not too sure, to be honest. And it's free flowing rugby. The likes of Castleford and teams like that this year have shown what they can do, and it gets to the national stage sometimes, and it's almost like we tried to play the Australian way, where it's just 5 tackles at the middle, then a kick, and you know, if it works, it works. But we're just not as good as the Pacific nations at doing that. It's as simple as that. So,
Yeah, and I think Kevin Brown's inclusion to the side was a surprise to many. I mentioned it in our preview the other day. I said, has he actually watched Super League this year? And I think Kevin Brown was probably one of the better players on the pitch. I think he calmed the side down a little bit, and he gave Gale and Widdop that platform to go and play themselves off, because Gale is more of a running player, really. If he had his choice, he'd rather run. And I think Kevin Brown took away that bit of responsibility, and he let Widdop do what he's been doing all year to get the Dally M 5-8 for the year. So, if you was Wayne Bennett, what would your pick be for the sides this weekend?
I think he's almost got it right in the team. I think you have to keep the halfback partnership of Brown and Gale. I mean, they do nothing wrong. And what's the point playing them in the France game if they're going to do nothing wrong? Then you're going to drop them. And so he's got that right. I think Brown at 6, Gale at 7. Widdop was man of match at fullback. So he's got the spine almost right. It's just, I don't know what James Roby has to do to start a game, to be honest. I really don't. I mean, you're a Saints fan yourself. You know how good James Roby is. He's been brilliant for the last 10, 15 years. And Hodgson is a good player. Don't get me wrong, Josh Hodgson is a very good player. He's just a very different type of player. And I just don't know if he suits this team very well. I think defensively he does. And I think that might be the reason he's going with Hodgson against Papua New Guinea, because it's going to be very kind of physical in the first 20, 30 minutes. Sigayaro is going to be up against, as a physical player himself. So I kind of understand it to a point, but I just feel Roby deserves more game time. I really do. I don't know if you feel the same.
Yeah, I think when Josh Hodgson first went to the NRL, he proved he could be the dynamic hooker, out of dummy half, fast, could kick a ball, he could pass a ball. I think in the last few years he's just kind of lost himself in that, and he always wants to kick. You've seen it this year.
Yeah.
Out of dummy half, he's looking for a little dribble in behind, and that's not always necessarily the right decision. I think Roby has outdone him performance-wise, and you see him, he just goes. He's done it, as you said, over Super League, an inch of space, and he's gone. And I think Josh Hodgson is certainty for the bench for me.
Oh, yeah, he's deserved the 17, 100%. But
you need a player on the bench, because he can come on. He's played 9, he's played 13 even for us sometimes. And I think in a game like Papua New Guinea, if the size isn't too much for us and there's spaces, chuck him in at 13, have an extra ball handler there to help smooth the side out. But I think 9's one position he's still unsure on, and I think the centre, I think Wayne Bennett's pretty much sure on it. But I don't think the England fans or any fans in the world are sure that John Bateman is actually a centre.
Well, he's not, is he? Let's be honest, John Bateman is not a centre. I don't mind John Bateman. I think John Bateman's a very good player. He's a very good back rower. Wigan fans will tell you that. I mean, that's not news to anyone, really. He's a very, very good back rower. So I just don't know what he sees, to be honest. Like, he's not done bad, don't get me wrong, but when we get into the business end of this tournament, you need... Every other team's going to have world-class centres. World-class centres can get it out to the winger. I mean, we've got 2 great wingers with incredible international try-scoring records. And I just don't know how much ball is going to get out to him, to be honest. I mean, you've got Matt Percival in the Dream Team this year at centre. He's in that squad. Why he isn't starting every week at centre as a recognised proper centre, I don't know. I thought he might have gone with Curry, to be honest. I figured that was the plan. But he's stuck with Bateman. I mean, to be fair, even Curry's not really a centre. He's still a second rower himself, but he's probably a little bit more suited to it, I'd say.
Yeah, I think the big problem with Bateman in the centres is, as you say, when it gets to the bigger games in the competition where you need the technical abilities, that you've got half a second to pass the ball, and Bateman is more of a runner. He used to playing in the second row, the outside backs at 13, and he just runs, and he's a powerful runner, but sometimes you just need that play with a bit of nous, when to run, when to pass. And I think that's probably what's let Percival down this year. If you watch most of his highlights of the Super League season, he's ran a lot. And personally, from an inside view of Saints, there was a lot of talk about Grace not getting the ball when he was on Percival's wing.
Yeah.
Tends to cut inside a lot more. So I don't know if that's played to Bennett's thinking about his decisions to play there, but certainly I think you can't ignore Percival in centres for me. I don't know if he's thinking he wants a more defensive side.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that is what it is when we're going up. I mean, look at PNG this week. We've got. We'll come on to Gary Lowe later on. He's been outstanding. It's a tank, isn't he? You know what I mean? So you're going to need. I suppose you're going to need a bit of presence on the outside, but I mean, you look at your two wingers. We must have the two biggest wingers in the comp, pretty much, in McGilvray and Hall. You know, what I mean, the two massive blokes, and I don't know whether you necessarily need a Bateman in there, but it's not a full knock on him because he is good defensively, to be fair. So you have to give him that.
Yeah, I just think he'd be utilised better in the packs, and it's a tough pack to get into for the England squad. You know, you've got the likes of Liam Watts who are sat at home. You've got Chris Hill involved. Whether he should have been involved after Warrington's season is up for debate. But I think you need maybe one or two players like him and James Graham who aren't your block-busting forwards. They just calm the pack down. But the likes of Alex Worms, who haven't been used amazingly this year at the World Cup in every game. What do you make of his performances, and do you think he deserves more game time?
100%. I think it's just that presence. I mean, Alex Walmsley is a massive, massive human. And anyone who's seen him live this year, he's huge, and he'll do a job for you. All right, he's not someone who's going to give you 80 minutes. He's not someone who's realistically going to give you 50 minutes. But for those, and he's done it in Super League all year, those 20, 25 minute stints he gives you, he just lifts that team. He's lifted the St Helens team, and I think he'll lift the England team as well. And we've just got to match these massive packs. Like I said, at the end of the day, you look at the quarter-final mix-up now. You know, it's us, Lebanon, and then Pacific teams. Those Pacific teams are massive, let's be honest. So we need to match them. And, you know, he can throw an offload as well. He's not just a brute, you know what I mean? He can play as a ball handling prop as well. So I've been impressed with him.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk with the NRL teams coming looking at Walmsley, and personally, I think that would probably break our season if he went over to the NRL. We'd need to bring in a top-class replacement. I think you're looking at one of the Burgesses for me. I think Tom or George would need to be one of the inclusions if he went for someone already in Super League. No names spring to mind that we could get from another team. Do you think Walmsley is the type of player to make it down under?
Possibly. You know, there's a bit of a track record, isn't there, for props, for British props to go over there. You could obviously Sam Burgess, Graham, Adrian Morley before that was another one. I think it's still kind of early days for Walmsley though. You know, I think all those guys are kind of, they were already at the top of their level, or top of their game, should I say. They're already top international players. Walmsley's only just kind of broken into it, and you probably know how old is he?
It's 26, 7 now. I think
he's mid-20s. He's still as a prop. He's still got a long way to go, and I think maybe 2 or 3 years down the line, maybe so. But I think for now, I think it probably will be best for him to just kind of see out his contract at Saints. And frankly, I think Saints are going to have a good side next year, a very good side next year. So he should be a big part of that.
And another player in the England squad that's been tipped for an NRL move is McGilvray. On the wing, he's been probably one of the more impressive players for England. As far as the competition goes this year, we've had some incredible wingers, you know. Got Vunivalu top scoring with 8 tries now. Gary Lowe, as you mentioned. But McGilvray has been probably England's shining light, and
100%.
I'd say not the only player, but the one player who doesn't need to worry about his position. Do you think McGilvray could make it down there?
Possibly. Like I said, in terms of England, he's first name on the team sheet. He has to be now. He's been absolutely outstanding, hasn't he? I've never seen him put in a bad display in an England shirt, to be honest. And his try scoring record vouches for that. He's got all the attributes, hasn't he? Because he's perhaps not the quickest, but when you're that powerful and you can finish like you can, you don't have to be that quick, to be honest. But he gets himself in the right positions. He's strong defensively, decent under an eye ball. I mean, that's it. He's just reeled off every attribute you need as a top class winger. He is a world class winger, simple as that. I can't see any reason why he couldn't perform well at an NRL level.
I think the moves, there's talk that the move's there if he wants it. There's clubs circling quite a lot. The World Cup is really a talent pool for selectors to choose players. There's been talk of Warrington's new coach watching every game, trying to recruit players. I think the only thing against McGilvray is his age. He's getting towards the 30s now.
Yeah.
Will a club take the risk on him? Will he want to move and take the chance at this age? If he goes now, will he be able to come back in 1 or 2 seasons, be the same player? We've seen the likes of Joe Burgess go down, who top scored in the Super League with 20-odd tries and then went to Australia and struggled, ended up coming back, recaptured a bit of his form. But there is always that question of, will it work?
I think the thing with McGilvray as well, you look at it like, say, you talk about his age, and he's got, He's been at Huddersfield for a very long time now. He's the most settled he could be. Apparently he's got a young family and things like that. It's not just necessarily the playing side of it which comes into it, it's the family side as well. And like you say, for the sake of 1-2 years disrupting his family for those 2 years taken down there, I mean, you'd have to ask him, I suppose, but does he want to do that? Does he want to take that risk? It's a big challenge, isn't it? It's a big ask. So,
yeah, as we said, his future for the England team is pretty much sorted. He is the number one winger. I think the wingers are the only settled people in the squad, and you'd hope so with Bennett's inclusion of 2 wingers in the squad.
Well, it had to be, didn't it?
Yeah. When McGilvery was faced with the ban, I think everyone in England kind of went, ooh, what are we going to do here?
Well,
then?
when we looked at he didn't do a bad job, to be fair, but when you looked at the squad for the French game and you realised it was Ratchford on the wing, you're thinking, it's all right for now in a game that doesn't really matter, but when you get to the quarters and the semis, do you really want Stefan Ratchford on your wing, going up against the likes of Gary Lowe and Mai Fanua and players like that? Not really. To be honest, that's not a knock against him, it's not his position, but it's more a knock against Bennett for not picking another winger, really.
Yeah, it's the inclusion of, I think it's 5 half-backs in the squad, and then 2 wingers, 2 centres, whatever. I think, obviously, it's the way he wants to play, but I know
it's odd, isn't it?
There's quite few people rumbling now about Wayne Bennett as head coach of England. Few fans going restless with it.
I don't know how long it lasts, to be honest. I mean, we could win the World Cup then, and then if he wins the World Cup, he can have the job for life. You know what I mean? That's how it goes. But it's just some of his selections were strange. But I mean, we go back to the 2 wingers thing. I mean, it's a risk, but it's a risk you just didn't have to take. I don't understand it. I mean, maybe I'm biased. I'm a Castle fan, but Greg Eden scored 40-odd tries this year. Like, how you can score 40-odd tries
on that one.
And being a dream team. Bear in mind, Wayne Bennett knows him well, having coached him at Brisbane, and always spoke very highly of him. That seemed a bit odd. And there's a couple of other names you could mention in there as well. Even a player like Liam Marsh or something like that. You know what I mean? Who's done well this year. Doesn't necessarily have to play, but at least take one on the plane. In case something like this happens, it just seemed like a lack of foresight, really.
Yeah, as you said, it's a bit weird in the whole Wayne Bennett persona of the press conferences and the way he constructs himself. There's a few people saying he's not the type of coach we want.
I mean, I'm sure you saw the press talk he had with Dave Woods after the Lebanon game, and that's just not what you want from an England coach, is it? No. In a sport, if he was the England football manager, he'd be absolutely slated for it. But if he was getting the results, it wouldn't really matter. This is a sport we need to grow. We need all the publicity we can get. We need characters. I mean, anyone who's a non-Rugby League fan who switched on BBC 2 at like 11:30 and saw that after the Lebanon game, they're going to go, who's that? That is not going to get people interested in Rugby League, someone speaking about the game like that. It just seems like you don't want to be there.
And you compare it to Rugby Union. I know Rugby League fans, myself included, kind of want to stay away from the comparison if we can, but you've got Eddie Jones, who's Australian himself, on the England Rugby Union coaching position, and you compare him to Bennett, and it's an absolute world of difference. You've got one character who's coming out with comments, and some of them he gets bad press for, but it's publicity. It still grows the game. You ask a sport fan, who's Eddie Jones, and he goes, he'll probably be able to guess that he's the England Rugby Union head coach. And
it's that, isn't it? Would you rather have bad press or no press? You know, it's just like, at least he's getting people talking. The fact is, we need people talking about the game. So it's even the World Cup itself. I mean, there's about some of the attendance and stuff like that. It's looked brilliant in some places. I know in Hamilton, where the New Zealand-Tonga game, it looked amazing. It looked like a Tongan home game, didn't it, with all the red?
Yeah.
Obviously, in Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, it's looked amazing. But they've taken games to Sydney and a few of the Australian cities, and it's been quite bare, to be honest. It's not been great. And that's in Australia, never mind the problems we have over here. So
I think the problem in Australia, do seem to have a problem of selling games.
Yeah.
And that sort of worries me for when Hull and Wigan go down there. How's that one going to go? Like, there's not going to be, I wouldn't imagine, that many English fans to travel down. Will the Australian supporters want to go and see that? Will the likes of Wayne Bennett, who's invested in England Rugby League, will he try and sell that to the Brisbane club, or is he too much focused on the Brisbane side and maybe lacks a bit of intensity on the England head coach.
Yeah. The pessimist in me does say that the NRL teams involved in the Wigan Hall games are just not going to take it that seriously, to be honest. Which you can kind of understand, because obviously they can use it as a trial game as well, because obviously we start a little bit earlier. So that is just effectively a friendly for them, which you can get, which obviously isn't going to sell tickets particularly well. I think the big one is going to be the Melbourne Leeds World Cup Challenge, which is announced this week, and we're going to see how that does. It's the first time that Melbourne's had the World Cup Challenge. They've had it in that part of the world, so it's be interesting to see how well they promote that, how well they market that, and see what kind of crowd they get for that. I think that'll be interesting. If they can get 25,000 in for that, then that's a success. I think that's more. I think that we'll see a much bigger issue if you look at that game on the Friday night, I think, isn't it? And you see only 10,000 in that stadium. That's going to be a big issue.
Yeah, and I think it's pitted for hopefully a better game than we've recently seen in the World Cup challenges.
Yeah.
There's a notion of, the Australian teams are far better than us and they're going to run away with it. And watching Melbourne at points last season, you could understand people thinking that at times it was absolutely unbelievable, but they've lost Cooper Cronk now. Mm-hmm. Cameron Munster's maybe coming into that position. There's Brodie Croft, the youngster who can come in. So it's not this Melbourne side of old that we've known. Mm-hmm. Do you think Leeds could go there and give them a real go at it?
I think 100% they can. I mean, obviously Leeds, you look at Melbourne, they're losing Cooper Cronk. They're like talismanic standoff. You can say the same for Leeds, can't you? They're losing Danny Maguire, so it's a similar kind of thing. But I think purely in terms of when the game is, it's on the 16th, I believe, in February. That's 2 weeks after the season started in Super League, meaning you'd imagine Leeds are going to be pretty much as close to full intensity as they can be. But it's before the NRL season starts, which I mentioned earlier. So it's like, I think Melbourne have a trial game scheduled for the day after, I believe, as well, against New Zealand. So I think Leeds can definitely give them a game, because I'm just not 100% sure how serious Melbourne will take it.
And that is the problem, really,
that is the problem, yeah.
After the last couple of years of Australian teams coming over here and absolutely demolishing some of our teams, they've gone, oh, well, what's the point? And we've seen that with the delay in the announcement of this. Not many teams want to do it anymore, and the expansion of the World Cup Challenge has sort of disappeared into thin air. And even when the top side doesn't want to play our top side, and I just say having a trial match afterwards, are we going to see a Melbourne team of kids and then Leeds go over there, absolutely smash them, we go, oh, that's fine, England Rugby League's perfect, it's all fixed now. But as I say, I think the problem is with Australia not taking it serious and kind of the whole notion of them still being better than us, and we need to stop accepting that now. Well,
it's farcical, and we think about it. It got announced, a couple of days ago. It's only 2 months away, and this is the World Cup Challenge. This is supposed to be the pinnacle. We know it's not. We know it's not the pinnacle, but it should be the pinnacle. That's the point. And the fact that Gary Everton from Leeds has apparently had to fight kind of tooth and nail to get this game actually played is horrendous, really. It really is.
You think back to the days of, like, my dad told me stories when Brisbane come over to play Saints, and it was a big deal even when St George were playing Wigan back a few years ago when George Carmont scored 2 tries to win the game, and it was still a big deal then, and then it's just the last few years it's slidden right off the track, hasn't it?
It's like, I know Wigan beat Cronulla last year, and Wigan are technically world champions now, but I'm sure it means a lot to Wigan fans. Does it really mean much to the world of rugby league? I'm not too sure.
The credibility of the World Cup challenges is up in the air at the moment. But moving back towards the World Cup, the biggest story in rugby league at the moment, in England versus Papua New Guinea at the weekend. What are your predictions for that? How do you think the match will go?
As I kind of mentioned earlier, I think the first 20-30 minutes are going to be key. Papua New Guinea, they're going to come out all guns blazing, as you'd expect, as they have all tournament. They're a big set, they're physical, they're passionate as well. That's one thing they're guaranteed to have. I can't see past an England win. I think everyone's pretty much in. Everyone kind of agrees with that. But it's certainly going to be the toughest game we've had the toughest game barring the Australia game, should I say. It's certainly tougher than France and Lebanon. But I can still see England winning by, I'd probably say, somewhere between 12 and 20 points, because I think we're just going to be too much in the latter half of the game. I think the second half we're going to be too much for them. I think they're going to probably tire themselves out with a little bit of luck, to be honest. If they can come out all guns blazing for 80 minutes, then England are in trouble, frankly. There's been some great performances in there. Like I said, I mentioned Gary Lowe. Has been outstanding. I'm very excited as Castle fan to see.
Obviously, a doubt for the game this weekend.
He is a doubt.
Massive miss for that side. And I think, I just said, the fashion of the win is going to be what's going to surprise or make sense to people. I think everyone's expecting an England win, as you have in competitions previously. But I think now, none of the England fans are expecting a blowout. You know, maybe in the past we used to go, oh, we'll weather the storm with the forwards and the backs coming in for about 20, 30 minutes, and then we'll blow them away and we'll win 40-odd-0. I think, for myself, the past couple of weeks, I've been found criminal of it, saying, oh, I don't think we're going to win by that much, and it's proved me right. You know, when I predicted England to win by 20 against France and we went up 26-0 in the first half hour, I was like, oh,
it looks
like they've done me here. But in the end, you know, it stopped clicking in the second half, and hopefully that won't happen again, because I think that's the key time for the England squad to win against Papua New Guinea in the second half.
I think, to be honest, it just, as much as it's a little bit frightening as an England fan, I think, to be fair, this is like, in terms of the international game, this is great. I mean, in World Cups in the past, it's been full of blowouts, and it's just been the little three-horse race. We're in a situation now, we've just got out of the group stages, we've had some pretty tough games, to be honest. Obviously the Australia game, but like France and Lebanon, although we were clearly stronger on the day, they've put up a good scrap, to be fair. When I say Lebanon, it was 7-4 in the second half of the game, wasn't it? So we've only just got out of the group stages, so we're looking at potentially 3 games to win a World Cup, and there is almost little to no chance of a blowout. We've got 3 genuinely tough games ahead of us, which is, it's good for the game, it's good for the sport, and it's great for the World Cup, really.
Yeah, I just said, you know, we have struggled a little bit, and like, to take an optimistic look at it, it's 2 wins and a loss to probably the best team, or the best team in the world.
Yeah, 100%.
The fashion of the wins don't really matter, you know. We're still sorting our team out, whether or not that is a good thing in the World Cup. Some people may look at it and say, well, if we can still be chucking a team around and get 2 wins and qualify second, that's a great thing. You might look at it and say, well, the team should be sorted before that first game. You should have your starting squad sorted. But then you look at the likes of Australia, who've had Ben Hunt involved, Cameron Munster, Michael Morgan, all sharing that 6 and 7 role with Cooper Cronk, and they haven't got their side sorted. I know it's a different ball game, because the substitute halves and substitute players are starting in every NRL team.
Yeah.
But I think, I just said, the fashion of the England win isn't going to be what we expected in the past. I think especially Papua New Guinea, we might struggle to score in the first half an hour as they just hammer us, and then especially with Tonga in the semis, I think that's going to be a real test. I think if we can win that, that gives the team all the confidence to go and give Australia or New Zealand or any of the other teams who may surprise us
Who knows?
A good crack in the final.
Yeah, I think the thing about this week as well with Papua New Guinea is, like, as much as I've been really impressed with them, I think one thing they're going to have against them this week is they've put together 3 very good performances. Don't get me wrong. You know, they just scraped past Ireland. To be fair, that was inches really. I mean, Ireland could have ended up winning that game, but regardless, 3 very good performances. But they've all been at Port Moresby with those 25,000 Papua New Guinea fans behind them. This one's in Melbourne, I believe. It's not going to have that kind of... Sure, they'll have some fans there, but it's not going to be the same kind of atmosphere. It's not going to be a cauldron like it has been over there. Whether that'll play into it, I don't know. I'd like to think, you know, get a few more England fans in there. The atmosphere-wise, at the end of the day, a lot of these Papua New Guinea players, they're not, you know, NRL standard. Yeah. They're not starting for NRL teams. They're not used to these big grounds anyway, so clearly they would have got a lift from those fans. So it's going to be a completely different atmosphere this weekend. I wonder if that will take its toll on them.
Yeah, it's a good point then. Just to touch on the Ireland sort of debate that's going on at the moment, with Samoa qualifying, having not won a game, and Ireland having gone out with a win and a draw, is it, or 2 draws, something like that?
They got 2 wins.
2 wins.
2 wins.
So the structure of the tournament, really, I think it kind of needs looking at for me.
100%. And I know for the next World Cup in 2021, which I believe is in England, they are promoting 2 more teams. It will be a 16-team competition, which it should have been from the start, really, because it's farcical, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the fact that Ireland can win 2 out of 3 and, not go through, and Samoa have had a draw. It's 4 points at 1 point. It's night and day, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's horrendous, really, and you've got to really feel sorry for Ireland, who have been absolutely outstanding, by the way. I'm so impressed by what they've done. But yeah, apparently in 4 years' time there will be 4 proper groups of 4 with 2 going through from each one, which will make it a lot easier and a lot less complicated.
Yeah, I think that is... Well, it's obviously the right move going forward. I think the group stage is one of the reasons that the sport kind of gets looked at and laughed at a little bit. Like, you could say football's taking it the complete opposite way with the 42 or 48 World Cup competition, but...
Well, they talked about even 64, you know, it's like, yeah.
But I think certainly the 16 would be...
It's got to be a thing. I guess the only question then is, you know, I mean, even now with 14, you've got teams which they've put a great account of themselves up, but you've got teams like Lebanon and like really kind of tier 3 nations, I guess you could say. I suppose the only consideration about the 16 is what 2 teams do you put in there? I guess Cook Islands, perhaps, another Pacific nation. Then you may be looking at. It's a chance to expand, I suppose. I mean, the one that stands out to me, which could happen, I suppose, bear in mind how well the Wolfpack's apparently doing. Canada, perhaps.
Yeah.
They already got the USA in there, so whether it be Canada, South Africa, maybe, it's just as much as we need 16 teams, I just don't want to put 2 teams in who are just going to be lambs to the slaughter.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
It's that whole, you don't want another team that's just there for cannon fodder who are just going to get blown away in one match. Are they really going to put that much effort in? Can they really put that much effort in?
Yeah, I'm not interested in bringing 2 teams in who's going to get blasted 8-0 3 times. But I understand they do have to go to the 16 teams because you just can't have this. You really can't have it.
And moving back to Papua New Guinea now, and one player in particular, Gary Lowe, as a Castleford fan.
There we go.
Are you excited for the upcoming season and his involvement in the side? Do you think he's going to get much game time in there with the likes of Greg Eden, Minikin? I know Jake Webster's probably going to be moved around from the centres. He's moving on a bit now. What do you reckon the expectation for him is now?
Well, you can't not be excited. I mean, watching his performances has been outstanding, hasn't he? But I saw a little bit of him at Sheffield last year, and he was impressive. I didn't realise how big a name he was in Papua New Guinea, to be honest. They all love him, don't they? But yeah, I mean, I think within the deal there was the possibility of him going back to Sheffield. But now after this World Cup performance, I'd be surprised if we did that. I mean, he certainly looks like a starting 17 player. It'd be tough to drop Eden after his 40-try season, but perhaps Greg Minikin's still a young player. I rate Minikin very, very highly. I think he's going to be a top player. Reminds me a lot of his captain Michael Shenton. Actually, I think I can see Minikin as a centre. Certainly, just fills out a little bit more.
Played there a few times this year.
Yeah. I mean, year before last, he played a lot in the centre when he played. I can definitely see him that being his position eventually. But he's still a young guy. You know what I mean? He's not necessarily someone who has to play 30 times next year. You know what I mean? So, and a guy like Gary Lowe, just great competition. I think Jamie Jones Buchanan said something a few days ago. He was asked about Gary Lowe, and he was like, he was a bit worried. As the Leeds player coming up against a guy like that. You know what I mean? He's got we've had a very powerful winger in the past, and Justin Carney in a few years back, and he looks a similar kind of kettlefish to that. Maybe like a Marcus Bai at Leeds. Been mentioned quite a lot, another Papua New Guinean. Very impressed, and just hope he can carry this World Cup form into next year. Yeah,
become a bit of a cult hero from this from the World Cup, and I could only imagine the same at Castleford. To be honest, if he come in and carried on those performances, I think it's without a question that he'll do that. And the World Cup has become sort of a breeding ground for coaches. Looking at, I know, Price at Warrington, he's come out and said he's watching it. He's got Murdoch Masilla, who obviously he would have seen from last year, and the whole Warrington board would have seen from that. Is there anyone that you, as a Castleford fan, or anyone in particular that you could see from one of the lesser nations or from one of the big ones being talked about making a big money move? Or
I'm not too sure, to be honest. I think the problem we're going to have is, because obviously the impressive performance have been from the Pacific Islands, as much as Ireland have done very well and things like that, and guys like McGillivray. But in terms of bringing players over to Super League, I mean, there's a lot of names you could mention, but I think the big issue now is they've brought in the collective bargaining agreement in NRL.
Yeah.
It's all well and good looking at these players and saying, "Oh, you look really good in a Leeds shirt. You look really good in a Saints Wigan shirt." How are we going to pay them? How are we going to pay them more than what they're going to be paid in the NRL? Because at the end of the day, this is not a high earning sport.
No.
And when you can get paid $100,000 playing for St George or Canberra or whatever, are you realistically upwards of 100? You're talking 200,000. Are you realistically going to come over to England after a great World Cup and for half the wage? You're just not going to do it. I think it's going to be very tricky in the next few years for us to be able to bring these top Pacific players over. So the timing's been shocking for Super League, really, the fact that these Pacific nations are really coming into their own now. And, I can see us slipping a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah, as I just said, it's the publicity of the sport in England specifically isn't what it needs to be. It's massive in Australia and even in New Zealand. I know the Warriors haven't really delivered as they should have done. But the difference, and you've got players, you've got Matt Moylan going to the Sharks and Maloney the other way to Penrith, who are both on £3 million, £4 million contracts, and you said to try and bring them over to England, it's just
not going to happen.
It's not an ideal. It's not something we can think about anymore. And you could say, well, is that not good for the English sport? You've got the likes of Saints going for Bradford players such as James Bentley now, and is that bringing? Because a lot of fans in Super League do have this idea of, the NRL players only want to come over here to finish the career. But then you look at like of Matt Parcell, he's probably coming into his prime at Leeds, and last season had a brilliant year. But then you've got the other side of that coin. You've got your Chris Sandows, you've got your Seguiaros who come over, boss it for a year, and then go, actually, no, now I've proved my worth, I'm going to go back. Obviously, you've got the likes of Ben Barber who don't really have a choice to go back. I'm sure there would be some club, such as the Gold Coast, who like to take chances on fullbacks that have been out of the game for a while. But as you said, it is moving towards more of an English look at, and do you think that's going to help the English national team in the long run?
I'd hope so. I'd hope it, as much as I've been quite pessimistic about that, I'd hope it would have a positive impact, because if we're going to have no choice but to bring in our English youngsters, then that surely can't be a bad thing. A lot of talk this week, specifically about how Ireland have done is, why do we not have, a real rugby league presence in Ireland? Let's get an Irish team out there. You know what I mean? Why is there not teams in Scotland? There's a couple of teams in Scotland, but like proper semi-pro teams in Scotland, Ireland, Wales. Let's get that. Get those Celtic nations involved as well, because at the end of the day, we're building towards supposedly a Great Britain Lions tour in 2019. I don't want to see a fully English team wearing a Lions jersey. You know what I mean? And I'm sure. I mean, you look at this Irish team. Guys like Oliver Roberts has been outstanding. You know what I mean? You'd like to think he might be with a shout because he's performance in an Ireland shirt. But yeah, we're going to have no choice but to bring through our talent. So yeah, hopefully it will have a positive impact. The fact that their salary cap and whatever is going up so far.
And you touched on it a little bit there, specifically with the Ireland team, and I think you look at their forward pack this year, and that is up there. You've got Brad Singleton, Kyle Amor, who on commentary was without a club at one point on Premier Sports. So that shows how much they look at the Irish team. And I think it was Liam Finn who came out the other week and said, well, why are we expanding to Canada and to America with New York when there's Scotland, Wales, Ireland who aren't really getting a look at?
What's wrong with the team in Dublin rather than the team in New York?
Exactly. It make more financial sense. It'd be easier for those in the championship, You're looking at Toronto, Toulouse, and last year there was even a possibility of Catalans becoming the 3 away trips. And I think with players coming through, Morgan Knowles, Reagan Grace from Wales, they show there is talent in these places,
100%.
And we just need to give them the resources to unearth it, really.
That's it. I mean, at championship level especially, there is all this talent from who are representing their nation. Like, look at Danny Addy on Saturday. It was unfortunate in the end. He just couldn't quite get one of those drop goals to go over, which could have, that could have been Scotland in the quarterfinals. Yeah, but he was outstanding, deserved man of the match. There is talent. There is talent. I mean, you could get into the eligibility debate. Are they really Scottish? Are they really Irish? Are they really Welsh? Sure, but it's besides the point. We're too far on with that now. We're too far gone. You just look at the Tongan team, the New Zealand team. You know, that's not a debate anymore. It just is what it is. But you look at the Ireland team, and you look at McCarthy Scarsbrook there with a Cockney accent. Right? He's not Irish, but I could not knock him at all because he went into those games with such passion. They all did. Genuinely proud representing that shamrock on the shirt, and that's all you can ask, really. And that's what's going to grow this international game, which is so important. We need to grow the international game.
And you touched on the passion there. I think you get that more from the lesser nations, you know.
Yeah,
you talk about Tonga, Australia getting paid $20,000 to represent the country. Tonga, 500, 5,000, whatever.
It was $500 on those. $500 a game. Yeah.
It's absolutely madness that especially the Australians getting paid that much to represent your country, where you've got the likes of Scarsbrook that aren't necessarily heralded from that place, but they were the heart on the sleeve.
Yeah.
And it's good to see in a way.
It's great to see.
And I just hope, as we say, that one day someone can realise, let's expand to there, let's give them the opportunity to grow, really.
I mean, you look no further in terms of like passion for the shirt, passion for this game. The England women's team are going down there. I think they've just got down there this week. They're getting nothing. They're not getting paid for that. A lot of them, there's been a lot of stories this week about, you know, they're going to be out of pocket when they get back. They're having to take leave, you know, from work and things like that. And that's amazing. That should be. I mean, there has been quite a bit of publicity about it this week, but we should be shouting that from the rooftops. You know what I mean? That's incredible. The fact there's those girls going over there to do that. Like the Tongan team might say $500 per game. It's nothing really. Let's be honest. But that passion, that pride, and we've seen it in the war dance probably isn't the right word, but in the hackers and the sippy towels and things like that. Absolutely unbelievable. I mean, ESPN showed the Tongan Samoan one last week. They called it one of the highlights of the week. That's ESPN in America. I mean, when was the last time ESPN ran a Rugby League story? Probably never. I don't
Especially
know.
with USA's performance at the World Cup, you know, they'd be forgiven for just ignoring it, really.
Exactly, but like I said, on ESPN were literally tweeting about Tonga and Samoa before a game, and the full capacity crowd looked amazing. That's what you want for the Rugby League, you know what I mean? That stems from that passion, that pride for the shirt, and pride for the nation. It's brilliant. We need to be really embracing this. Really do.
And just to finish off, we'll just go for predictions for this week. And who is your fullback and your 6 and your 7? Are we settling with Kevin Brown is our Lord and Saviour? Or are we going to chance our arm and give someone else a go at fullback? John Bateman would be my choice for the fullback position. I think he's provided a great go at centre, but I think we'll move him to fullback and he can use his hands even more there.
Oh, that'd be outstanding, wouldn't it? Bateman at fullback. In terms of my squad position, it's pretty much what I said earlier. I think Widdop, I mean, he's as someone said a few days ago, it's like he went into the tournament as our best 6 and he's coming out as his best 1. So I just like he's certainly the best fullback in that team. And I suppose Widdop is probably the justification for not naming Jamie Shaw and Sam Tompkins. I suppose he's been very good at fullback, as much as I think Shaw especially should have got in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Widdop at fullback. I'm going to go Kevin Brown because, again, what was the point of the France game if he was going to play well and then you just weren't giving him his chance? He played well. For me, he's got to play. And if you want it, we just need consistency in 6 and 7. It's haunted us for years now. Haunted us against in the Four Nations. You know, as much as I think George Williams has played well in the England shirt, you've just got to stick with what you know at this point. And what we know as of last week is Brown and Gale. So Brown and Gale are my 6 and 7. And, you know, he's going to go Hodgson at 9. Personally, I'd go Roby at 9. But either way, Roby's going to get game time. So maybe he's right. Maybe Hodgson is going to give us that physicality for 20, 30 minutes. Then you can roll Roby on. Once the PNG are a little bit more tired, then he can start ripping some holes in them. I'm not too upset with it, to be honest. I think that's my 1, 6, 7 and 9.
No, I would agree with you in this term. I think 6 and 7 we need to look at. I think Luke Gale, for me, as much as it might hurt you, is not an international player for me. Domestically, in a team that he's settled with, he's great. You know, the plays around him, basically. But I think international, he tends to go missing a little bit. And he has to play because there's no one else there. I think George Williams is going to be our 7 in the future. I think we just need a 6 who can control the ball, kick the ball, let Williams do what he wants. But for now, surprisingly, Kevin Brown is probably the guy to make the England team work.
I never thought I'd say it, but there it is. Yeah, Kevin Brown is the Lord and Saviour, as you say.
Yeah.
Coming this week.
And that's going to wrap up the podcast for this week. Thanks to Ross for joining me.
No problem.
Certainly interesting chat. If you want to get in touch with us, it's at the Rugby League Hub on Twitter, Facebook. The website's therugbyleaguehub.com. Leave any feedback you want, any comments, what you'd like to talk about next week, any improvements that we could be made. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening. See you next week.